Mamdani for an affordability campaign for a New York that people can't afford to live in.
And just keep in mind, Hassan Piker, he's a social media online influencer. He has a channel with a large following, and this kind of has to do with the way that the Mamdani campaign has been reaching out to those on social media and trying to expand their base, not just in New York City, but then also the attraction to outside of the 5 boroughs. It's interesting to see how people in Los Angeles or even across in Europe are engaging with Mamdani's messaging as well as the campaign. Errol?
Yeah, you know, Bernadette, that's been a phenomenon. I know some of you have mentioned from out in the field that there's a lot of international press that are showing up to a local election, which is a little unusual even for New York. What are you seeing there?
Right. Well, I mean, over the past couple of weeks, Mamdani's been taking questions from those from Germany, from London, from France. And of course, as a local reporter, I'm always thinking to myself, he's running for New York City mayor. He should be answering New York City questions. But take that with a grain of salt. What these reporters are trying to find out is if what's happening in the U.S. will have any influence over other big cities across the world, and especially other big cities like London, for example, or Paris, where, you know, democratic socialism is more of a norm, as opposed to here in New York, where it's the center of capitalism. So, you know, the questions often have to do with affordability, how he would achieve that, and if he thinks that that message is something that's transferable on a broader scale, Errol.
Okay, thanks very much, Bernadette. We'll be checking in with you later. Let's check in now with our Dan Rivoli. He's standing by at the campaign party for Curtis Sliwa on the Upper West Side. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Errol. So the polls closed, the votes are coming in. Sliwa, so far in a distant third. That has not dampened the mood too much here. I think a lot of the Sliwa supporters are genuinely proud of the campaign he ran, hitting the streets, the subways, the buses, and talking to voters and running a vigorous campaign and defying the odds from billionaires, conservative influencers, even President Trump trying to get him out of the race, and even that last-minute endorsement to Cuomo and saying that a vote for Curtis Sliwa was a vote for Zohran Mamdani. He persevered through it all, and I think there's a lot of pride from Sliwa supporters on that. Of course, one of the big stories of the Sliwa campaign was whether he was able to retain Republican support. There are a few Republican officials who ended up backing Cuomo, a few stuck with Sliwa. And even tonight, the campaign told me they were expecting a GOP city council member to show up. I texted her. She's staying in Queens in her district. But there was one big Republican name who came in here to applause and people taking selfies, and that is former Governor George Pataki, the last Republican governor in New York, and he stuck by Sliwa to the end. I was able to catch up with him and get a few brief comments on what he thought about the Sliwa campaign and whether Donald Trump made the right call just before Election Day.
How do you feel about the fact Curtis Sliwa never bowed out and stayed until the end?
I think Curtis rode a great race. He loves the city. No one is more committed to the future of New York than Curtis Sliwa. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Do you think Trump made the right call?
No.
And there you hear it from former Governor Pataki. Did Donald Trump make the right call? A flat no. So you have a prominent Republican there praising the Sliwa campaign for sticking it out until the end, Errol.
Yeah, I mean, and Dan, this is for Republicans in New York who are vastly outnumbered in the registration. They're used to the idea that they're standing on principle and maybe fighting a losing battle that's worth fighting.
And especially for Sliwa, he thought he had the moderate, common sense, middle of the road kind of policy on issues of law and order. And he was not a doctrinaire conservative. He was pro-choice, pro-gay marriage. He was a critic of Donald Trump's immigration and deportation policies, particularly in New York. Perhaps that is why he is faring so poorly and not getting what a typical Republican would get, or why Donald Trump did not see him as a credible candidate. He was not a pro-Trump Republican, and Trump treated him as such. And Trump is so influential. What we are seeing perhaps could be the influence of Trump in that last hour coming out on his social media page and saying, don't vote for Sliwa. And that is why perhaps you see Sliwa in such a distant third. But we'll have to see what the election day vote totals come in and see if that pushes Sliwa up in the from far behind in third place.
Yes, indeed. The night is still early. Thank you, Dan. Let's check in now with our Kelly Menner. She's in Midtown monitoring Andrew Cuomo's election night party. What is the latest there, Kelly?
Hi, Errol. Well, the latest here is the room has completely filled up as of now. No big reaction from those who are here. We're still waiting to see when the former governor will show up. He still is in second place as those returned unofficial results start coming in. In the crowd, no big names as of yet, but I have seen some close allies of Mayor Eric Adams and some of his, at least one of his advisors here in the crowd tonight. We were talking to some of the other attendees that include some volunteers that were earlier campaigning into the final hours of this race, trying to get the governor's message out there, trying to make sure that voters know that he's more of this moderate Democrat, and continuing that message that this is about the future of the Democratic Party, this moderate versus progressives, moderate versus Democratic socialists, and what that future could look like. Nobody in the room necessarily worried about the returns that are coming in so far. They're saying it is still early in the race. There's still many more votes to go. The night is young, and so we'll have to see as those returns come back in. But this is a second bid for the former governor. This is not looking good as of now, but the same place that he was in earlier this year when it came to the Democratic primary. He was looking to get a boost from Republican voters in this last final stretch, his last days going into tonight. So we'll have to see if that's going to be enough as the night continues, Errol.
Yeah, that's right. It's important to keep in mind, I guess, there are about 970,000 votes have been counted so far. Which means we're not really even at the halfway mark. So they have good reason there to hope for an outcome that will favor their candidate.
Yeah, that's definitely right. And these are people who are aware of that energy coming out of Zohran Mamdani's camp. They're aware of this could be a very long night. That's something that many people have been telling me as I've been walking around the crowd. So they did not expect this to be an early night or something that would be clear right away. So they are waiting, just like everybody else, to see how this all shakes out as the night goes on, Errol.
Okay, a nail biter, at least at this point. Thanks very much. We're going to go now to, let's see. If Zohran Mamdani wins, he's going to make history as the first Muslim mayor of New York City. New York One's Noraline Khawaja is at an election night watch party. This is in Astoria, Queens, and it is hosted by the Muslim Democratic Club. Noraline, what are you hearing from the voters there?
Good evening, Errol. Yeah, as soon as, and by the way, they have New York One on their TVs here, and as soon as we announce the early results, all of the, community members that have gathered here at this Yemeni coffee shop in Astoria, which of course is a part of Mamdani's assembly district, they were cheering, they were excited. There's a lot of enthusiasm, although of course it's still early, as we've been mentioning on air. And this event is being hosted by a community organizer here in Astoria, born and raised in Astoria, Rana Abdelhamid, and she joins us now. Rana, I want to ask you, you've been canvassing, you've been at, on the front lines, if you will, campaigning for Mamdani. So how are you feeling right now in this moment?
I feel really proud of the coalition that we've pulled together. This is a historic moment. This is a hopeful moment. I think especially throughout this campaign, there's been so much Islamophobia and hate and vitriol towards Mamdani, and so much of that resonated with our community, and now we get to celebrate so much of the labor that went into this race.
And you are a supporter of Mamdani. You know him. Of course, this is part of his assembly district. So, how hopeful are you when it comes to coming out on the other side of this? And what are some of those issues of why you are supporting him and backing seeing him in this moment?
I'm looking forward to rent stabilization. I'm looking forward to fast and free buses. I think so much of his affordability agenda, and look, everybody is so excited. So much of his affordability agenda resonates with our community here in Astoria and Queens as working class communities.
And why do you think that so many young voters, first-time voters, a lot of Muslim voters, immigrants, this is a working class neighborhood, why do you think they turned out for Mamdani? Of course, this watch party is full of supporters of Mamdani.
Exactly, as you mentioned, this is a working class community, a community where the message of affordability really resonates, but also a community that has not been engaged politically, a community that has been ignored. And finally, we're engaged in the electoral fold and we're being seen and represented.
And a message here that is resonating with so many New Yorkers, Errol, is the fact that they feel seen. They believe that if indeed it is Mamdani to become the next mayor of New York City, that these are, New Yorkers who finally feel like that they're having their moment, that this is historic for them, that to have possibly the first Muslim mayor. You can hear all of the chanting behind me at this point. I can't hear you in the control room, but certainly you can feel the enthusiasm that's in this room with so many of Mamdani's supporters in his district. So a lot of excitement, but again, with caution. It's still early. The votes are still coming in, but these people behind me, these folks, Errol, they're feeling confident.
Okay, thank you, Nooralain.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.